What's up? Are you here for the book club? Perfect. Let me just get it out. It's 6 o'clock here for the 6 o'clock reading. Can I get a name? Perfect. It's so nice seeing you. Thank you. Is this your first time? Well, welcome in. Let me just finish up this note and then I'll get right to you. Perfect. Okay. So, our book club is once a week. We're going to be reading this month Cleopatra, a novel. I love Cleopatra. It was my turn to pick the book, so I picked Cleopatra. Now I am a little sick. I'm getting over a cold. No, it's not COVID, and I got tested. I'm not like contagious or anything. That's why you're over there. I'm over here. But you got your book ready? Okay. So, we're going to just start with page 1. This is called Cleopatra, A Life by Stacy Shift. Chapter 1, The Egyptian Woman. As you guys can see, this is where Alexandria is. Right here, right by the Mediterranean Sea. There's the Nile River going all the way through to the port of Alexandria. Just to give you a little reference. Alright, let's begin. Fat Egyptian Woman, Chapter 1. Man's most valuable trait is a judicious sense of what not to believe. Euripides. Among the most famous women to have lived, Cleopatra VII ruled Egypt for 22 years. She lost the kingdom once, regained it, nearly lost it again, amassed an empire, and then lost it all. A goddess as a child, a queen at 18, a celebrity soon thereafter, she was an object of speculation and veneration, gossip and legend even in her own time. At the height of her power, she controlled virtually the entire eastern Mediterranean coast, the last great kingdom of any Egyptian ruler. For a fleeting moment, she held the fate of the Western world in her hands. She had a child with a married man, 3 more with another. She died at 39, a generation before the birth of Christ. Catastrophe reliably cements her reputation, and Cleopatra's end was sudden and sensational. She has lodged herself in our imaginations ever since. Many people have spoken for her, including the greatest playwrights and poets. We have been putting words in her mouth for 2,000 years. In one of the busiest afterlives in history, she has gone on to be an asteroid, a video game, a cliche, a cigarette, a slot machine, a strip club, a synonym for Elizabeth Taylor. Shakespeare attended to Cleopatra's infinite variety. He had no idea. If the name is intelligible, the image is blurry. Cleopatra may be one of the most recognizable figures in history, but we have little idea of what she actually looked like. Only her coin portraits, issued in her lifetime, in which she had likely approved, can be accepted as authentic. We remember her for 2 the wrong reasons: a capable, clear-eyed self-sovereign. She knew how to build a fleet, surpass an insurrection, control currency, alleviate a famine. An eminent Roman general vouched for her grasp of military affairs. Even at a time when women rulers were no rarity, she stood out, the sole female of the ancient world, to rule alone and play a role in Western affairs. She was incomparably richer than anyone else in the Mediterranean, and she enjoyed great prestige than any other woman of her age. As an excitable rival king was reminded when he called her during her stay at his court for her assassination. In light of her statue, it could not be done. Cleopatra descended from a long line of murderers and faithfully upheld the family tradition, but was for her time and place remarkably well behaved. She was nonetheless survived as a wanton temptress. Not the last time a genuinely powerful woman has been transmuted into a shamelessly seductive one. Now you're going to read the next paragraph. What do you... Okay, then I'll just read it. Like all lives that lend themselves to poetry, Cleopatra was one of dislocations and disappointments. She grew up amid unsurpassed luxury to inherit a kingdom in decline. For 10 generations, her family had styled themselves pharaohs. The Ptolemies were in fact Macedonian Greek, which makes Cleopatra approximately as Egyptian as Elizabeth Taylor. At 18, Cleopatra and her 10-year-old brother assumed control of a country with a weighty past and a wobbly future. 1,300 years separate Cleopatra from Nefertiti. The pyramids to which Cleopatra almostly introduced Julius Caesar already contemporary graffiti. The Sphinx had undergone a major restoration 1,000 years earlier, and the glory of the once great Ptolemaic Empire had dimmed. Cleopatra came of age in a world shattered by Rome, which the course of her childhood extended its rule to Egyptian borders. When Cleopatra was 11, Caesar remained his officers that they did not make war. If they did not obtain riches and rule others, they were not Romans. An Eastern sovereign who waged an epic battle on his own against Rome articulated what would become Cleopatra's predicament differently. The Romans had the temperament of wolves. They hated the great kings. Everything they possessed they had plundered. They intended to seize all and would either destroy everything or perish in the attempt. The implications of the last remaining wealthy country in Rome's sphere of influence was clear. Egypt was distinguished itself for the nimble negotiating for the most part. It retained its autonomy. It had already embroiled itself in Roman affairs. For a staggering sum of money, Cleopatra's father had secured the official designation friend and ally of the Roman people. His daughter would discover that it was not sufficient to be a friend to the people, and that their senate it was essential to befriend the most powerful Roman of that day. That made for a bewildering assignment in the late Republic, racked by civil wars. They flared up regularly through Cleopatra's lifetime, pitting a succession of Roman commanders against one another in what essentially would be a hot-tempered contest of personal ambition. Twice unexpectedly decided on Egyptian soil. Each convulsion left the Mediterranean world shuddering, scrambling to correct its loyalties and redirect its tributes. Cleopatra had thrown it in his lot with Pompey the Great, the brilliant Roman general who on good fortune seemed eternally to shine. He became the family patron. He also entered into a civil war against Julius Caesar just across the Mediterranean. Cleopatra ascended to the throne in the summer of 48 BC. Caesar dealt Pompey a crushing defeat in central Greece. Pompey fled to Egypt to be stabbed and decapitated on an Egyptian beach. Cleopatra was 21. She had no choice but to integrate herself with the new master of the Roman world. She did this so differently from most other client kings whose names not incidentally are forgotten today. For the next year, she struggled to turn the implausible Roman tide to her advantage, changing patrons again after Caesar's murder, ultimately up to wind up with his protege Mark Antony. From a distance, her reign amounts to a pure reprise. Her story essentially told over and over before it even began, although this is not, of course, the way she would have seen it. With her death, Egypt became a Roman province. It would not recover its autonomy until the 20th century. Can anything good be said of a woman who slept with two of the most powerful men of her time? Possibly, but not in an age where Rome controlled the narrative. Cleopatra stood at one of the most dangerous intersections in history, that of woman and of power. Clever women, Euripides, had warned hundreds of years earlier were dangerous. A Roman historian was perfectly happy to write off a Judean queen as mere figurehead, and 6 pages later to condemn her for her reckless ambition. Her indecent embrace of authority, a more disarming brand of power, made itself felt as well. In a 1st century BC marriage contract, a bride promised to be faithful and affectionate. She further vowed not to add love potions to her husband's food or drink. We do not know if Cleopatra loved either Antony or Caesar, but we do know she got each to do her bidding. From the Roman point of she enslaved them both. Already it was a zero-sum game. A woman's authority spelled a man's deception. Asked how she had tamed her influence over Augustus, the first Roman Empire, his wife purportedly replied that she had done so by being scrupulously chaste, herself doing gladly whatever pleased him, not meddling with any of his affairs, and in particular, pretending neither of them noticed the favors that were the objects of his passion. We're almost done, I promise. There is no reason to accept that formula at face value. On the other hand, Cleopatra was cut from a very different cloth. In the course of leisurely fishing trip under a languid Alexandrian sun, she had no trouble suggesting that the most of the celebrated Roman general of the day tended to his responsibilities. To a Roman, license and lawlessness were Greek preserves. Cleopatra was twice suspect, once for hauling from a culture known for its natural talent for deception, again for her Alexandrian address. A Roman could not pry apart the exotic and the erotic. Cleopatra was a stand for the alchemical ease, for her sinuous, sensuous land, as perverse and original as astonishment of a river. Men who came in contact with her seemed to have lost their heads, or at least to have rethought their agendas. She runs away even with Plutarch's biography of Mark Antony. She works the same effect of the 19th century historian who describes her on meeting Caesar as a loose girl of 16. She was rather an intensely focused woman of 21. The siren call of the East long predated Cleopatra, but no matter what, she hailed from the intoxicating land of sex and excess. It is not difficult to understand why Caesar became his history, Cleopatra, a legend. So, we're going to stop there for the day. We're going to do our little recap. So, put your book down. Let's talk about it. What did you learn so far about Cleopatra? Perfect. What did you learn about Egypt? Yes, I'm cutting it short today because I have to go to an appointment. But next week, we are doing a 1-hour special. Perfect. And let me ask you one question. How many lovers did Cleopatra have in her lifetime?